Now, after years of expectation and delays, Nigeria's Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, in an exclusive chat with a TV station, has confirmed that the aircraft for the national carrier Nigeria Air will arrive in the country on Friday ahead of the commencement of operations. The minister insisted that Nigeria Air will commence operations before President Muhammadu Buhari leaves office on the 29th of May 2023.
Now, Mr. Sirika spoke while briefing State House correspondents after the Federal Executive Council meeting, stating that all arrangements had been put in place for the takeoff of the national carrier. On the other hand, experts have kicked again, expressing dissatisfaction with the way the aviation sector is run for the past 8 years. They have also asked why the sudden rush in having left what could have been done years ago. Now, joining us is a publisher, CEO of Aviators Africa, Tony Ukachukwu. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right. Hadi Sirika is back in the news. Nigeria Air is back in the news. A couple of years ago, it was, it could have almost been seen as a failed project, a couple of years ago when when they tried to launch it and, it didn't happen. Is this in any way meant to be exciting for Nigerians when the minister says that it will launch before the president leaves office on May 29th?
It's anything but exciting. This has been ongoing for the past 8 years. Then suddenly there's a rush. For those in the aviation sector, you understand that there is a process to which an airline is being set up, and it's been followed through by the regulators to make sure that you pass through the processes of setting up an airline. The Nigerian Air, or the proposed Nigerian Air that is due to fly on Friday by the minister, has not satisfied these processes. First off, let me just end with that you need to have an AOC, Air Operator Certificate, for an airline to operate, to be certified in operational. That we have not seen to be issued to Nigerian Air. And we wonder how, come Friday, Nigerian Air will fly. But again, every stakeholder is waiting for Friday to see how Hadi Sirika pulls off this magic.
Well, what is it possible that what he means by Nigeria Air would launch and would fly is really just an official launch, but not necessarily a business launch? It might be just we have one plane that has been, branded Nigeria Air. We can officially cut the ribbon and say it is launched, but we're not necessarily going into business yet. Is that what might happen?
That is a possibility, because if you go by the technicalities of setting up an airline, none has been satisfied. So basically, in the balance of how politicians commission, launch, and set up ventures, this might be one of those at play, because you cannot in any way have set up an airline without going through the processes. So perhaps there will be a show of an airline sitting on the tarmac with a livery, and then there's a ribbon being cut and say, hey, this is Nigerian Air. Other than that, I don't see any Nigerian Air flying come Friday. Of course, going by the antecedent again, by the Farnborough launch in 2018, it was ribbons and cards that were displayed that were stated that Nigerian Air was launching. So again, maybe we'll have that kind of display. So we wait to see on come Friday.
All right, let's talk about as well some of the challenges that have bedeviled the aviation sector. We've seen a number of complaints, people talking about the fact that they might not be making profit at this moment. As a matter of fact, there have been speculations that anyone who's launching into the aviation business will not make profit, and there might be some ulterior motive. What are your thoughts on this?
So the market has really not expanded. Rather, it keeps compressing. The market has not improved. We have not increased in numbers of people flying. The industry is at a standstill because the enablement or the infrastructure needed to improve the sector has not been put in place. And then again, when government begins to want to be a player in the sector that is supposed to create an enabling environment for, then there is a conflict. So what we've seen in the last 8 years, but according to the minister, is that there has been increase in the numbers of passenger volumes, but the stakeholders, of course, have varied, position from the ministers. So this minister comes and takes his roadmap, whereas the sector doesn't follow him through with sticking the roadmap that he has ticked, what he has set to achieve in the 8 years. So for me, the 8 years of Hadisrika has been nothing but been some turbulences in the sector, with the stakeholders crying with hues and cry about things that are not done properly. But again, it has not been that to cheer about for the 8 years that Hadisrika has held sway. Not to say that there are no successes, there are, but overall, the industry has not improved.
All right. The minister also said that one of the only incomplete items on the list is the Aerotropolis, which is an airport city, and it says it's about 60% complete. Do you also? I mean, the reason we ask these, or Nigerians have, certain levels of doubt when we see these things is because we've heard, from the Nigerian government, from the current administration, multiple times in different regards, but we never really get to see them, come to fruition. So he says the Aerotropolis is 60% complete. Do you think that there is completion in sight, and the current administration or the coming administration will see to it that it is, a complete project?
So again, the challenge is that most times government is not held accountable to the things they say or do at per time. If you say Aerotropolis is 60% complete, who is measuring it? Okay, if you say the Nigerian Air is 90% complete, who is measuring it? So people come out, government officials come out to bandy statistics and numbers, and there's nobody to verify these claims. And that has been what we have seen in the past couple of days, because nobody is holding them accountable to their statements, to what they say, to go verify or checkmate what they are doing. So it's easy to come out to the media and just bandy figures and say, this is 90% complete, this is 60% complete, this is almost complete, and nobody's verifying it.
All right, today is Africa Day, and we're celebrating the beauty, the diversity, the uniqueness of our continent, but we must not neglect some of the challenges that we have or we're currently facing. When we look at the aviation sector in Nigeria and in Africa, what would you say are some of our biggest challenges, and what are some of the changes that you desire that we see, especially as we look forward to a new administration here in Nigeria, of course?
So basically, today is Africa Day, so Nigeria is part of Africa. I must also kind of loop it into what we are doing on the globe, on the African scale. So for us, we look at interconnectivity of Africa, the connectedness and the borderlessness of Africa. Of course, there is this fragmentation of, lack of the inability for travel, tourism, and trade to hold friction in Africa to grow our GDP. So at this moment, we must look from the aviation perspective how air connectivity must strengthen, that part of Africa to make sure that there is free movement of people, trade, and for tourism, so that Africa can grow its potential and, of course, grow its GDP. So for me, today as Africa Day, I look forward to us not upholding the imaginary boundaries that have been placed on us by others, but breaking these barriers so that there can be free movement of Africans in Africa.
I want to ask a final question. We've seen the way that the Nigerian government has run other ministries, departments, and agencies. We've seen how it has run the railway, Abuja, Kaduna, and Lagos, Ibadan, and the likes. Do we trust that the Nigerian government can effectively run an airline? Or should we just, at this point, advise that the Nigerian Air be fully privatized?
So simply put, government has no business in running business.
Okay, that's an interesting way to put it.
Thank you very much
for your time this morning. And of course, we'll see. Fingers crossed. Let's see what it turns out like, before the 29th. And if Nigerians will be eager, just like the e-Naira that, didn't get any patronage from Nigerians, let's see if they would be interested in Nigeria Air, because they kind of pretty much the same thing. Thanks for your time.
Let's have some positive attitude and optimism.
All right.
Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, as always.
All right.